What is up, guys? We are back at the barn prepping for a long weekend of blasting, I think, and swapping over some stuff. So in the last video, when we were working on the Super Glide, which is still apart, obviously, I haven't touched this. I gotta have him come by and figure out what he wants to do about those pulleys, and then we still gotta pull the sprocket off and get to the main seal and then that inner main shaft seal, and then that should give me a little bit better of an idea on that bushing. But today, off-kilter video. We're not doing truck things. We're not doing bike things. We are doing sandblast things. So here should be our new nozzle and gaskets. We have brand new 1.25" diameter ID hose. And the 1-inch line we have run over here. This is still not big enough. I know, that needs to go bigger. But I don't have $500 for another hose right now. So hopefully that will get us through this job. And maybe we'll be able to upgrade that one for the next job. Don't mind spending the money on the equipment. It's just a matter of coming up with the cash when I can actually afford it. So what I need to do now is actually disassemble this lower claw section, and hopefully, actually, fingers crossed, that lower one, because that's an 1.25" pipe, it looks like, going in at that Y fitting off of the metering valve. Hopefully that will work with the upgraded air fitting, or the claw fitting for the new hose. So I gotta build up another hose real quick, fire up the compressor, and we will give this an actual test run with the new number 6 nozzle on these very rusty equipment racks. So I'm not gonna bring you guys in here when we actually start blasting, but I will bring you along for getting the setup stuff on here done. So let me throw you guys on a tripod, grab a razor blade, start opening up all of this stuff, and find all my fittings that I put somewhere in here. Cool. Tripod it up. Whew. It's a much bigger ID. I'll show you guys what the other one looks like here in a minute. 1.25" on the inner diameter. So I think what we'll do is actually set these ends up first. 1 claw and 1 nozzle. Should have brought some lube. All right, let's see. Some Vaseline or grease works really well for this too. But let's see what we can do here. This is going to be a really tight fit. Hence the reason that lube is very helpful. And we got to get this all the way flush with this end too. Let me grab some grease. I was hoping a little spritz would do, but that's tight. So ideally the goal is to give this a shot today with this hose on here. Now, I know that this is heavy, very heavy, and the bigger the hose, the harder it is to handle. So if this becomes too much in the blast room to try and handle and maneuver around with this 1.25" hose, then we may cut down about 10 feet from that other one and make a little whip. So it's going to be 50 feet of 1.25" and then tapered down. Okay. Try and wipe the grease off before we go to snug this down here. And then go from an 1.25" to like a shorter run. A little bit better. All right, almost there. Luckily, you don't have to do this all that frequently, because that's getting heavy. All right. So this is a nozzle side. And wipe up the excess in here, because I don't need that hitting parts. All right, we're seated there. And we take our screws, and these get screwed right into the side of this. Don't worry, it will not block the media from flowing through. It will, these heads are gonna wear off under use. But they will hold it in place. This is a massive hose compared to what we have on the other one. Then we get to wrestle one more on still. Isn't that fun? And then we'll throw the nozzle on here too while we're at it. We're gonna use a number 6 nozzle, which I believe is a 3/8 diameter long venturi. And cut this so I can rotate it a little bit. It's funny, I've spent so many hours of my life sandblasting at the powder shop that I can't stand it most days. But now, with new equipment, it's like a rejuvenated new burst of motivation. Nothing else has really changed. I just have more air. And it's a little bit faster, and way more expensive. But we spent such a long time trying to optimize our setup at the other spot. And it still isn't even remotely as good as this new setup over here. But I guess that's okay. Taking on a growth mindset, so I've never spent as much money as I have this year in terms of equipment and assets and things. But I guess on the upside, I've never been in a position to spend that much money before. And now, it's like relearning all the same stuff over again on a bigger scale. Okay, there's that. Let's see what our new nozzle looks like. And our new washers. Don't forget these guys. Nice. All right, look at that. Way smaller than our old one. And the only other thing we gotta do is make sure that this is fully seated against the other washer. Like that. There's one end of our new hose. Now, let's cut the other 50 feet out of this thing. Throw my washers back in there. Off camera, I actually came over and swapped this out. I couldn't get enough leverage on this to get this all the way seated where it's supposed to be. I thought I got it to the end of the ridge, but the ridge that I see in here, I'll show you in a second, isn't actually a ridge. It's the last thread, but I couldn't get this to spin enough to get this fitting all the way down, and if this isn't flush, it's gonna spray back and media is gonna keep blasting the outside of this housing I want all of that directed right into the venturi of the nozzle, which I'll show you guys in a second once I get these screws out. But so if you look at the end, this is where sand and air come in. This is tapered. So you got a taper coming in and then it tapers back out. It's a double venturi. So it tapers in, tapers out, kind of like an hourglass, if you will. They have longer ones with a bigger venturi and all sorts of fancy nozzles available now, but they get more and more expensive as you go up. Different types of, this is tungsten carbide, there's silicon carbide and boron and all sorts of different metals on those. And now some of the new ones are like, I don't even know what they're made out of. But they got quiet ones that make the blast come out, the blast noise a little bit quieter, extended reach ones where they'll accelerate the speed of media going in. But I forgot that we do have the vise here, so we're gonna cheat and get this thing as far down as I possibly can. I basically want this flush with the end of these threads, if I can get it there. Getting closer. Oh, a couple more. Almost. Oh, come on. Much better. So now you can see that that's flush. Hopefully you guys can see that, focus. That's pretty much flush with the end of the threads now. So that won't allow the threads to get all jacked up. Let's get 1/4 more. Now we drop in our nozzle washer, which sits right on the end of the hose. And then this guy comes in. And we'll jam our screws in. I'll get 4 of these started first. Then we'll pull this out of the tube so it can expand. Let's get the top ones. Then we'll get the vise off to let that hose flex back the way it wants to be and go from there. Good thing I ate my Wheaties this morning, man. I knew that was going to be a pain, but I didn't think it was going to be that tight going in. But brand new hoses. We'll see how long they last, really. So I believe the outer diameter of this hose is 2 7/8 now. And there's actually a bigger one. This is only a 2-ply hose. I didn't get a 4-ply. If I'm running a longer length or need more hose than this, then I'll step up to a 4-ply on the way out from the compressor and then taper down to this, I think. Or just keep this all the way throughout. You could do that too, and then keep the hoses consistent. But the biggest air outlet I have on the compressor is 1.5 inches. So whatever I do on that will not matter if I go any bigger, I don't think. I don't think running a 2-inch hose, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, if you know the airflow stats on that, but going from 2 or 1.5 inches out to a 2-inch and then back to 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches going into the blast pot doesn't seem efficient to me. Could be wrong, maybe there's some sort of science involved in that, but air in, air out pretty much. So let me tighten up these screws. Let me tighten up the screws on these hoses, and then I'll get this hooked up over there. So now we have our hose disconnected from the pot. I gotta undo all of these zip ties. So we can do our safety valve stuff. Ideally, I think at some point I do actually want to swap this over to an electronic as well. But for now, this will work just fine. All right. So I should be able to snake this big one out from here now, I think. Try and do this without dropping a million things. Ooh. One down. 50 feet of hoses. Talk about a workout. Okay. So I'm curious now, before we even hook this up. Now that I got these flush on the end, here's my 3/4 coupler. There's this hole. Like I said, 1 pinky diameter. Pretty much, for me, fills that up. Whereas now, we're well past thumb size. And in the field, if I need more hose or in a pinch, this bigger one will connect to the smaller one. And now I have 100-some feet of usable hose, even though it's gonna decrease the efficiency a little bit. So, let's roll this guy up as best I can. And we'll save that number 7 nozzle in case I need it. So we are going to be blasting a 60-foot trailer, I think, this weekend. So I don't know how far I'm going to have to go or how close I'm going to be able to get all my equipment. This is trial by fire, if you will. Save this fancy box for number 7 nozzle as well, because I anticipate I'll be stocking up on different nozzles as we progress. Start with the cheap ones, get the ball rolling, and then we can kind of keep upgrading as we go. Just like all of these extra fittings and couplings that I've been grabbing. At some point, I will need a lot of them. Growth mindset, again. I don't mind spending money on things that I think will in turn make me money. At least that's how I look at it. So it's tight and it's cramped over there. So I'm just gonna jam this main blast hose on here first. Hopefully you guys can kind of see from there. And then we'll go through the twin line stuff. This is also way more hose than I need in this blast room. But kind of is what it is in that regard. For now, at least. If this makes a noticeable difference, then I will upgrade and get a shorter section, which is way cheaper. So, a safety whip goes around here first. What that'll do is prevent, in the case that this does come undone, that, come on, You can do more than that. Another quarter turn. There we go. Now that's locked. So you got a sprung safety whip on here. So in the event that that coupling lets loose, that airline won't go flapping around all over the place. Along with that, you get a little safety pin that goes through your crowfoot fittings or Chicago fittings, like so, to prevent that from untwisting itself. Jesus. It's either I'm out of shape or this stuff's really, really heavy. It's definitely probably a bit of both. So now I'll pull the remainder of this hose in and try my best to loop this as turn-free as possible. So many damn hoses in the way. In the blast room again, this is way too much hose. I probably only need about a 20-foot stretch in here. Enough to get me from that wall behind you back over. But as of right now, this is kind of what I'm stuck with. I don't want to trim down a brand new hose. Oh, that's got some weight to it. I don't want to trim down a brand new hose yet. So let me grab some zip ties and then we'll set up the twin line here. You don't want a bunch of kinks in there. Let's get this line set up. Give myself a good amount of room on this back one. Try and keep that hose out of the blaster as straight as possible. And just every handful of feet, so these don't get too tangled. We're doing this like every 4 or 5 feet or so. You don't want this to kink at all. So I'm gonna have to kind of let that follow here. All of this, and we're just at setup. Man. Where do I want this? Here's the important one, and then I'll fix up the rest. But so this is your dead man valve. Not gonna lie, in the smaller pressure pot setups, I usually bypass this, even though it's not the smartest thing in the world. But on that one, I'm not nearly as worried about it as I am on this. This one's big and flows a lot more air. This one could hurt you. My other one could too, but as long as you're paying attention, it's not that bad. So I'm gonna put 2 more zip ties on there. Then we're gonna fire the compressor up and see if this thing will work. Okay, we're just about there. Tried cranking this over. She wanted to go, but she didn't. Can hear it chugging already, so let's try a quick battery swap. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough on the jumpers. Yeah, we'll just jump to the hot battery. Could be these terminals too, they're pretty shot. Let's try the new one. I don't know why she don't want to go. But you notice the cranking is substantially better just by jumping over to that other battery. Trying to keep this dead one alive. I don't know why. It's kind of a pain to have to jump it and switch it every time, but she wants to go. She's right there. She'll fire. Never left me stranded yet. I can actually hear fuel getting pushed now. Oh my goodness. So this is what I deal with. Some days she fires right up, some days she coughs and chokes a little and then runs fine. It's a little smoky. I don't know if it's flooded, not getting enough fuel, if there's a leak in one of the lines. I don't know enough about diesels, but I know once it fires up, it runs perfect. So if that's the biggest problem I have, I guess it could be worse. This is actually a new one. I've never had this issue. Usually when it coughs, it fires right up. I don't know why it's not lighting off completely. Weird. Very strange. Any diesel gurus out there? Come on, old girl. Is it too cold for you? This is a first for me. You have gas, right? Oh, diesel? Yeah. We got fuel. That was odd. I don't know what that means when a diesel starts coughing and spitting like that. To me, it sounded like she didn't get enough fuel to light off and stay lit off. But a couple squirts on the primer and it fired right up, so. That's warming up. I'm gonna let that warm up until it's actually up to temperature before we actually start using it. And then we got a full pot. We'll get these set up in here on the sawhorses. Then we'll probably have to swap out a lens on here too. This is a blast job, and then I think we're coating these two. That'll be a different day. Sadly, I've had these a while too. Just too busy as a single person up here on this side, but let me get changed into my blast outfit, let that warm up. I'm gonna swap the battery over on that one back to the old one so that'll get a nice charge while we're using it today. And then we'll see how this goes on the new setup. Don't know if I'm gonna film any of that. I'll probably update you after. Oh, my dumbass forgot to turn the fans on, so I just dusted out the entire shop again. It's like the second or third time I did that. Between the electric one, the diesel one, and everything else, sometimes I just forget. But I started blasting. Holy crap. Upgrading from 3/4 to 1 inch, plus the new nozzle, plus the oversized blast hose that's the right size for what I'm doing. Night and day. I have a smaller diameter, but it is insane already. I started at 528. I've been in there for 535. 535 right now. One pass, one pass, one so I can see. It's been 7 minutes, so this job should only take me maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. That went really well. I was very excited on that initial bit. I was hoping that this would take me a whopping 20, 30 minutes, and then I flipped them. So I just so happened to have these placed here, like so. That part took 20 minutes, super quick. However, when you flip them, sit you guys down here. C-channel pockets, huge pain. Okay, huge pain. The 1.25" hose and the nozzle, again, I changed 3 different things, so I couldn't really do like a test and tune type situation, if you will, but I ran a smaller nozzle, which builds pressure, a bigger air hose, which builds nozzle pressure, and a bigger blast hose, all of which attributed to that pot lasted me, I got through 2 bags. I ended up having to put 1 more bag in and then swapping out a mask, because once you get into these C-channel areas, the blast back, I'm sitting here trying to make it work, is terrible. So, and the lighting in here is still subpar. I gotta update the lighting here still. It's on the list. It's just a matter of time and money. But these were also heavily rusted. I mean, you can see the pitting left over from blasting here. But now we got nice clean white metal. These are ready to get epoxy primered and coated and go back into service. So in total, it is now, I just changed and everything to 6:30. So I have 1 hour total from firing up the compressor to finish, and that's with having to fill up the pot with 1 extra bag. And what else? Stopping to get out, turn the compressor back on, let the room air out, swap 1 mask. There's tear-offs too, which I might have to start doing just because it's such an inconvenience to stop. But overall, that was taking all of that thick, rusty mill scale off in 1 pass. So smaller diameter, more pressure, offsets it blasts faster if I can pass over everything once instead of sitting there having to go bigger spread, softer blast profile. So I'm very impressed, I'm very happy with that, but I definitely will need to be cutting part of this down and do a like 10-foot whip section. I don't think it would be as bad if this wasn't a 50-foot run for in here, but maybe I'll try putting that 25-foot hose, or putting the 3/4 back on and try that with just the new nozzle and see if I notice any difference. In the blast room, I typically don't need the full setup. In the field, like when I'm blasting that trailer, hopefully, that little whip section is just much more manageable. Like now my knuckles and my hands hurt from lugging that big hose around and trying to hold the valve and all that other stuff. So now I realize what I want. I know the whip hoses, everybody says scale them down at the tail end. That's why, in terms of trying to operate and hold it, you're holding 110 PSI of pressure going, or 105 PSI of pressure going through the line. So it's constantly trying to push back at you. The bigger the hose, the harder it is to maneuver. So that'll wrap this one up. I know it's kind of an off-kilter video on just blasting things, but like I said, the channel's called Wrenching Wrecked for a reason, and this is what I'm currently wrenching on today. It's work stuff, it's shop stuff, but getting all of this set up, it's cost me a lot of money and a lot of research and a lot of investment to kind of build all this up and keep going with it, but light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're almost kind of there for an efficient setup, and this trailer will be the ultimate test. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back on Super Glide and Bike Things once I talk to him and figure out a game plan for what we're going to do with that thing. Catch you guys on the next one.